Okay, Hare Krishna everybody. Welcome to the third session of Bhagavad Gita as it is. In ISKCON, whenever we start any discourse, any lecture, we start with a prayer and we actually sing the prayer. So today I have got this kartal and so we're going to sing the prayer of Prabhupada, which you have seen before. Remember? Srila Prabhupada's prayer. So I'm going to sing it first and then you hear it, the tune, and then you can sing after that. Namo Vishnu Padaya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Paschatya Deshatarine. Okay, you can sing along with me. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Now the Panchatattva prayer. I'll repeat first. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Again. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Means chant the names of the Lord in the ecstasy of love for Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. You must have heard this in the temple, is what it means. So this is the way to begin our session every time. So last time, this is a continuation of the last time. We are at the introduction of Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada has in the introduction tried to establish the supremacy of Lord Krishna. He is trying to establish that Krishna is indeed the supreme most Godhead. Nobody above him, nobody equal to him. So Srila Prabhupada has quoted from the 10th chapter, 12th verse, where Arjuna is addressing Lord Krishna as Parak Brahman, Parak Dhama. And we discuss what it means, right? Parak Brahma, what it means. Remember? Param means supreme. Nothing beyond that. Param. And Brahman means spirit, soul. We are all Brahman. But Krishna is the supreme Brahman. So Param Brahman, Param Dhama. Lord Krishna is the supreme abode. He is the supreme destination for us. And moving forward, what Arjuna actually said in that verse, we'll come to the verse later, what he actually said, someone can read it. Arjuna said, you were.
Arjuna said, "You are the supreme personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the internal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest." Should I read?
Maybe someone else can.
Should I?
You can read the next part, all the great sages. Okay. Yeah.
All the great sages such as Narada,
Asita, Devala.
and Vyasa confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me.
Oh Krishna.
Oh Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, oh Lord, can understand your personality.
Right. Yeah. So Arjuna, during the war, he was perplexed. He was overwhelmed, and he couldn't bring himself to fight the war. So Krishna told the Bhagavad Gita, and at the 10th chapter, Arjuna understood his position, and Arjuna understood the position of Lord Krishna, and he says, "My Lord, you are the supreme Godhead. You are the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest." And Prabhupada says in the purport, rather in the introduction, that one might think that Arjuna is just flattering Krishna. It's possible. People can think, oh, he is just flattering Krishna. Therefore, Arjuna, in order to clear that, he says, it's not just me who is saying all this. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Srila Vyasdev have confirmed this in the scriptures. And if you see the scriptures, there is Bhagavatam, there's Brahma Sutra, and there all the scriptures confirm that it is indeed Krishna who is the ultimate, who is the supreme most God. And then in the beginning of the war, Arjuna, after he said many reasons why he is not going to fight, he puts down his bow and says, "Oh Govinda, I shall not fight." Right? And he refused to fight. And when Krishna gave him some arguments why he should fight, he counter-argued. But now in the 10th chapter, he says, "Now I accept everything that you say to be true." And then he says, "Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality." That's an interesting thing to understand, because many times, we say, okay, I am seeking God, I'm going to find God, I'm in search of God. People use this kind of statements. मैं भगवान की खोज कर रहा हूँ, भगवान को ढूंढ रहा हूँ. That's actually, come to think of it, it's a bit silly, Because God is not a cat or a mouse that you search and you find it. There He is. He's not that. भगवान कोई चूहा नहीं कि हम ढूंढ के निकालेंगे. What actually happens is when you are in devotional service, Prabhupada had emphasized this term devotional service. Devotion means love. Devotion equals love. Service means seva. When you serve God with love, God slowly reveals Himself. We can never in a million years find God. It's not possible. When you serve God with love, Krishna reveals Himself. That is His mercy. So that point needs to be understood. We can't seek God. Okay, now we come to the actual verse. Arjuna Uvacha Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. This 10.12, and it has got different adjectives to glorify the Lord. So the first was we saw that Param Brahma, Param Dhama, and Pavitram. Now the next word that Arjuna uses is Pavitram. He calls Krishna Pavitram. It's a Sanskrit word, but we all know what Pavitra means, pure, Shuddha. But what does that mean in context of Krishna? Pure means when we want to do puja, we take bath and we become pure. So when Arjuna is calling Krishna Pavitram, does that mean Krishna has taken bath? No, it doesn't mean that. That in this context, Pavitram actually means something very different. I need to go to the next slide. Yeah, there. So you see this picture. If you have a Bhagavad Gita, you'll see this picture in Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna is there, and there are three ladies below him. And these three ladies have these, like puppet strings. And below that are human beings. And these three ladies, it's a symbolic picture, but a very important picture. These three ladies are the three gunas. Now we won't go too much into detail because we are in the introduction, we haven't actually entered Bhagavad Gita, it will come to it later on. But these three ladies represent three gunas. Anyone knows what are three gunas? The three modes of material nature, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Translated into English, it means goodness. Sattva means goodness, Rajas means passion, and Tamas means ignorance. We are in the material world. Krishna is in the spiritual world. The Shastras tell us that in the entire creation, the material world is just a little fraction, like say 10% of the entire creation. And when I say material world, it includes the entire galaxies. I'm not just talking about Earth. The entire galaxies, solar systems, and infinite material world is but a little fraction of the entire creation, which means that like 90% of it is spiritual world, of which we have no idea. We have no access to that spiritual world, and Krishna stays in that spiritual world. But the entire material world is controlled by three gunas, as I said. And these three gunas are a part of Prakriti. Now the new terms coming up, but just bear with me. Prakriti is feminine energy. Prakriti is overseen by Durga Devi. Okay, Durga Devi, have Durga Puja, right? Durga Devi is, I wouldn't say control, but she is a supervisor of Prakriti. And Prakriti means all the material things, all the planets, all the solar system, that is Prakriti. And its supervisor is Durga Devi. And Durga Devi has these three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And every living entity in the Prakriti is controlled by these three modes. That's why we have the ladies with the strings. And why ladies? Because Prakriti is a feminine energy. And Krishna controls Prakriti. Krishna is Prakriti's boss. He controls Prakriti, and Prakriti in turn controls us. Think about it like this. I was thinking of some example to make this more clear. Think about it like this. There is a big bucket, and I'm putting colored powder into it. Like in Holi, we have colors, right? I'm putting a lot of yellow powder into it in a big bucket. And then I'm putting a lot of red powder into it. Then I'm putting a lot of black powder in it, black or blue. Actually, Sattva Guna is represented by yellow. Rajo Guna, the passion, is represented by red. And the Tamo Guna, the ignorance, is represented by black. So I'm putting in a big bucket a lot of these three different colors. And then I'm putting all of you in that bucket. I'm standing outside the bucket and I'm putting you in the bucket. What happens is all of you will get all the colors. Some of you get more yellow color, but you will also get a little bit of red and black because you're in the bucket. Some of you will get more red, but you still get the other two colors. Similarly, we are all in the material world. We all have these three gunas. Some people, let's say, they're more prone to anger. They have more rajoguna. So they have more of red powder. But they also have some yellow and other colors. Because nobody is 100% evil. Nobody is 100% good. Everyone has all the three. So the material world is controlled by the gunas. And Krishna is above that. So therefore, Pavitram in Krishna's context means Krishna is uncontaminated by the material nature. Because like I said, I'm putting you in the bucket with the colors, I'm standing outside, so the color doesn't affect me. Similarly, Lord Krishna is above the material world, he's in the spiritual world. None of the things of material world affect him. In fact, he is the person who is controlling it. So when Arjuna calls Krishna Pavitram, it doesn't mean that Krishna took bath, it means Krishna is beyond material contamination. And guess what? One may think that the mode of goodness, sattva, that's what before I read Bhagavad Gita, I thought sattva guna means it's a mode of goodness. A person in the situated in the sattva guna, he rarely gets angry. In fact, he never gets angry. He's very shant swabhav ke. That's sattva guna. But guess what? That is also material contamination. To go to the spiritual world, one has to go beyond even sattva guna. So Lord Krishna is Pavitram, and then we come to the other adjectives that has been used. Purusham. Now each of these words you can talk for hours. Purusham, Arjuna calls Krishna Purusham. Purusham means, well, what is the normal meaning when we say in Hindi Purush? Means what? Man, male, right? I looked up in Google. I'm not a Sanskrit person. I don't know Sanskrit. I'm learning it. So Purusham in Sanskrit has got over 50 meanings. One meaning is that male, Purush means male. In this context, when Arjuna called Krishna Purusham, he means the supreme enjoyer. Now we have to get off our conditioned way of thinking. We'll think, why does Krishna have to enjoy? Why can't we enjoy? But Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Why? Because one of the adjectives of Krishna is Rishikesh. One of the names of Krishna is Rishikesh, means he is the master of the senses. We have sense organs. eyes, ears, nose, touch, with which we perceive the world. If there's a rose flower, I can smell it with my nose, I can see it with my eyes, and I enjoy it. So we enjoy with our senses. But Krishna is the owner of our senses. So if I'm smelling a flower, it's Krishna who's enjoying through me. So ultimately, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And again, the male energy, now we are talking in terms of energies, we are not talking in physical terms. I'm not talking about a male and a female physically, but the male energy is what enjoys, and the female energy is what gets enjoyed. So Krishna is the ultimate Purush, the ultimate enjoyer, the supreme enjoyer, and the Prakriti of which we are all part is the female. Okay? So the entire galaxies and cosmos and the planets and everything is the feminine energy. So it's not even one. Sometimes we think, okay, this is a man. So the men are also female energy, part of Prakriti. So Purusha means he's the ultimate enjoyer, and later on in Gita, Lord says, Krishna says, I am the supreme father. How does life get born? How is a new life formed? When the father puts the seed in the mother, right? That's how life forms. Krishna, being the supreme father, he puts the seed in the Prakriti, material world, and living entities are born. We are born. But how does Krishna put the seed? Just by glance. It's not how in the material world the union happens. We have to, physically it has to happen. But Lord, with just a glance, Lord looks at the Prakriti and living entities are born. The Prakriti gets impregnated with the Jivatmas. That's how creation happens. So Krishna is the supreme Purush. Shashvatam, the next word used by Arjuna is Shashvatam, means eternal. Krishna is eternal. Everything else gets dissolved. In the material world, nothing is eternal. Material world is temporary. Everything comes into being, stays for some time, and then gets dissolved, goes back into nothingness. The whole Prakriti, planets are born and they die. What to speak of us? We are just very temporary. But Krishna is eternal. When there's nothing, Krishna, God is there. When everything again annihilates, God is still there. So He is eternal. Divyam. Divya means transcendental. We are material. We are not Divya. We are material. Krishna from the spiritual world is Divya. Divya, transcendental. Adi Devam, the original supreme personality of Godhead. Adi Devam. Ajam, unborn. Krishna doesn't have parents. Of course, when he does his Leela on earth, he gives the privilege to his dear devotees, the most dear, most devotees, like Yashoda Mata. He gave her the privilege of being his mother, to play the role of his mother, and Nanda Maharaj. But Krishna is not born. He is always there. He'll always be there. But we take birth. We have to come through the womb of a mother. Vibhum means the greatest. So these are the words Arjuna used to describe Krishna in the chapter 10. And moving on, Arjuna, after that he says, Sarvam etad ritam manne. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. So now Arjuna accepts. And then again, as I said, he confirms that by naming different sages, Narada, Devla, Vedavyas, Asita, all have confirmed that you are indeed the greatest. Okay, now if you read through the introduction, Prabhupada says that our existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. Can someone tell me what this might mean? Prabhupada. And if you look at the picture, I found the picture interesting. Um, you see, the different people are shown, and inside there is Atma and there is Paramatma. You see two things inside. One is the Atma, one is us. Everyone's in the heart. There's Atma and then there's Paramatma. So what does this mean when Prabhupada says our existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence? Can you guess what it means? Okay, as I said, the material world is temporary. You know, different philosophies have try to explain this. I think it's Ravet philosophy which says um, Jan, Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya, something like that. The Advait philosophy of Shankaracharya. They say the Brahma is the real deal and the Jagat is Mithya, is false. So, but we don't buy that. We don't call the Jagat Mithya. The material world is not false. The table is there, the laptop is there, everything is there, the body is there. It's not false, it is there. But what we say is it's temporary. We don't call it false, we call it temporary. So we say the Jagat is ashashvat, not shashvat, temporary. And the Brahman is, of course, eternal. As soul, we are eternal. That's one of the messages, prime messages of Bhagavad Gita, that you will never die. Most of the anxieties of this world is, in fact, the psychologists say, out of the hundreds of fear that we have, the most foundation fear is the fear of death. And all the other fears are big, offshoot from that. That's a foundational fear of death. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us that you don't really die. No one dies. We are eternal souls. It's impossible to kill the soul. Why? Because it's so tiny that the scientific equipments cannot detect it. In school I studied about the electron microscope, which is very powerful. And electron microscope, that was, like 50 years ago, that was the powerful thing. I think now more powerful things are there. But the scientists cannot detect the soul because there's no equipment, no instrument to measure it. To measure something, it needs to be, recorded. Soul cannot be seen. It's so tiny. The viruses, they have souls. We had the COVID. All those were souls. The soul is so small. And the interesting, the adbhut part is that the soul is there in the virus, and it's there in a whale, in an elephant. And the size of the soul is the same in an elephant and in the virus. And that soul makes the elephant move and the virus move. Soul is so tiny. So why am I saying this? Anyway, yeah. So the meaning of this statement is that the material world is ashashvat, impermanent. Okay, and we are permanent. Our original nature is that we are permanent, but we are put in a impermanent world. So we are in a very strange situation. A permanent person is put in an impermanent space. What happens as a result of that is everybody is in anxiety. Every one of us in the material world has anxiety. In fact, Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is the name of the spiritual world. One of the spiritual, there are many different spiritual worlds. There's the world where Sri Lord Rama stays with his devotees, and there's a world where Lord Vishnu stays with his devotees, and that is called Vaikuntha. The meaning of Vaikuntha, Kuntha means anxiety. Vaikuntha means that place where there is no anxiety. In the material world, everybody is in anxiety. I don't think anyone can say from birth to now that they have never encountered any suffering, they have not encountered any misery. Nobody can say that. Big or small, everybody has encountered misery of some sort. That is the way of the material world. Later on in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that this material world is like that. It's a place of anxiety. So the problem that we are facing is that we are eternal. Deep inside, our soul knows that we are eternal. But the world out there is temporary. What we see now is not there tomorrow. What we see tomorrow is not there day after tomorrow. What we saw yesterday is not there today. Relationships change. Buildings change. Everything changes. You put an apple on a countertop in the morning, next day it's rotten. It's decayed. Everything changes in the material world. So we are in the atmosphere of non-existence. Everything is constantly coming and going, coming and going. We are in an atmosphere of non-existence. Our existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence, and that causes a lot of misery, anxiety. That's the meaning of this statement. And the perfect human being, according to Shastra, who is a perfect human being? Somebody who does lot of charity? No. Because people have, they don't have a clear understanding of what it means to be perfect. Many people give lot of charity, which is very good. It's good to give charity. It gives you a lot of punya, pious credits. But that is not the aim of human life. It's not a perfection of human life. Some people read a lot of shastras, which is good. Swadhyaya in yoga, that's one of the limbs of yoga. Swadhyaya means you are learning from the scriptures. It is very good. But is that the aim of life? Is that the perfection of life? No, that's not the perfection of life. Some people do a lot of tapasya, austerities. Like we have the Kartik month, it was in November, October to November, we have a Kartik month, which is a very spiritually potent month. And a lot of people do a lot of tapasya. People sleep on the floor. In Vrindavan, if you go, you find most of the people walk barefoot on the road. That's a tapasya. Austerity, meaning inflicting hardship on oneself to purify oneself. That's tapasya. But is that the goal of life? No, that's not the perfection. That is good, but that's not the aim of human life. To reach the perfection of human life, according to Bhagavad Gita, is when you do Athato Brahma Jigyasa. This is the first word from Brahma Sutra. Athato means now. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Brahma, as I said, is the soul. When a person inquires, why am I here? What is my real identity? What will become of me after this life? Where was I before this life? In Zen Buddhism, I used to try to practice Zen Buddhism for some time. They have what is called as a koan, K-O-A-N. You can Google it. A koan in Zen Buddhism is a question that the spiritual master gives to the student. And what the student has to do is, he has to meditate on that question. It's a question. And when you meditate on that question over and over and over again, at some point, you achieve a breakthrough. You see the truth. That's what the Zen Buddhists believe. But anyway, so that's a question. And one of the koan, very famous koan, is that what was your face like before your grandmother was born? Something like that. Yeah. What was your face like before your grandmother was born? A koan is a very cryptic very puzzling kind of a question, but it's a very powerful question. Come to think of it, okay? Now, your grandmother, before she was born, what was your face like? Meaning you were there. You were in existence, but you were in some other form. So when you meditate on that question, slowly you realize a lot of truth about life. So in Brahma Sutra, in our scriptures, Hindu scriptures, we say Athato Brahma Jigyasa is the same thing. We are inquiring about our true self, our true nature. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. And according to Gita, a perfection of human life is when you actually inquire about your true self. Okay? So that's the perfection of human life. And coming to the next slide, another statement written by Srila Prabhupada. So why I'm going through these statements, Srila Prabhupada has time and again said that read my books scrutinizingly. He didn't tell to read my books. He said scrutinizingly. And scrutinizing is when you actually, every word is powerful. If you have to understand the meaning of every statement. There's no extra statement. Everything is like sutra. You know what sutra means? Just a condensed essence. So one statement of Srila Prabhupada is every activity of human is a failure unless he inquires about the nature of the absolute. Absolute, as we learned, is Krishna. And we have no idea about Krishna, and we will, if we are lucky, by the end of the life we get some idea about Krishna. So the nature of absolute, you can do whatever you're doing. You could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could be a lawyer, you could be a housewife, you could be whatever. You could do whatever you're doing, but if your activity is not yoked, yoked to the Supreme Lord. That's the meaning of the word yoga. Yoga means yog. The actual meaning of the word yog, Sanskrit word yog, is latch, yoke. So when you yoke every activity to Krishna, that makes that activity a success. If it is bereft of Krishna, that activity is a failure. That's the message of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever you do, later on we'll come to that verse where Krishna says, whatever you do it for me. And that makes that activity success. If you keep Krishna out of your life, if you keep Krishna out of the picture, then that activity is practically of no use really. It's interesting, you know, when people who don't have a deep understanding of this, for example, I've been asked, you know, we cook at home, we all cook food and we have to eat food. But what we do is we cook, the Vaishnavas, they cook food and they offer it to Krishna. And then they take that food and they eat it. So if you look at the action, there are two, A and B, both of them are cooking food. One is cooking food and one is eating it, A, and B is cooking food and offering it to Krishna and then taking that and eating it. The action is same, both are cooking food. If you look from outside, A and B both are doing the same thing, then how can you say the activity of A is a failure and the activity of B is a success? The criteria is that B is cooking for Krishna. You can cook any nice number. You know, the ISKCON is called the kitchen religion. Kitchen religion, I think that's what it's called, because a lot of times, you know, all our festivals involve a lot of good food. We don't eat meat, we don't, take onion and garlic, but then amount of delicious food that we can make with whatever choices we have, you know, it's really amazing. So you can cook food and you can eat to your full. Nobody's stopping you. But what makes that activity a success is you offer it to Krishna. Whatever you do, that's just an example. You sing. You sing for Krishna. In your mind, you have to just think, Krishna, I'm singing for you. But outside, it looks the same. Two people are singing. So every activity of human is a failure unless it's unless he inquires about the nature or absolute, or in other words, unless it's some way connected to Krishna. And then, okay, now this is again an interesting thing. Remember last time I showed you a slide where there are 5 different relationships that Krishna has with his devotees. Every soul has an eternal relationship with Krishna, and that relationship can be a friendship, a paternal, or a servitude and all that. Arjuna is an eternal friend of Krishna. He will always be Krishna's friend. And when somebody is so intimately associated with the Lord, how can that person have a nervous breakdown? If you see the Mahabharata war, just before the war, and Arjuna was a great warrior, he has won hundreds of wars. Arjuna has even defeated Lord Shiva. If you see Mahabharata, and I think in the serial also they showed that episode where Arjuna was in the forest. The Pandavas had a long exile period. Duryodhana had sent them by crook to the forest, and they had to spend like 12 years in the forest. And Arjuna was in the forest, and he was hunting, I think. So he shot an arrow at an animal, and Lord Shiva is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. He's the greatest Vaishnava. So Lord Shiva came to test Arjuna. And Lord Shiva was impressed. In fact, he was shooting arrows, and both of them had a little, arrow war or some sort. But Lord Shiva was just testing Arjuna, and Lord Shiva was impressed. Arjuna actually could defeat Lord Shiva, and he was impressed. And he gave him I think it was a Pashupata Astra, which is a celestial weapon. Anyway, so Arjuna was a great warrior. He had won several wars. He went to the Devloka. He assisted Lord Indra. He won wars for Indra. He was a great warrior. And why did he start trembling before the Mahabharata Yuddha? Before the Mahabharata war, Arjuna was shaking. He was sweating, and the bow was slipping out of his hand. Why did he have that nervous breakdown? When he is an eternal friend of Krishna, he should already know that the soul is eternal, nobody really dies. Then why did he have that problem? The reason is Krishna put Arjuna into a temporary delusion. Krishna put Arjuna in a delusion so that Arjuna will ask those questions, and who will benefit from the answers? We will benefit. Arjuna was not really deluded, but Krishna put him in delusion, so he'll ask those questions. And the Bhagavad Gita is a gift of Arjuna actually. Had Arjuna not asked the questions, he keeps asking questions as we progress through Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks questions for our benefit, and Krishna answers them. So if it was not for Arjuna, there would not be any Bhagavad Gita. The world would have just gone as usual. The shank was blown, and tada, the war would have happened. And so Arjuna had those questions, and the whole Bhagavad Gita was said because of that. And Krishna put Arjuna into that delusion. And Lord Krishna does that to his beloved devotees. He puts them into difficult situations so that he uses them as his, in Sanskrit it's called nimitta, as a messenger. So to teach the humanity these lessons. Yeah. Now, the Bhagavad Gita has basically 5 major topics. The entire 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita basically talks about these 5 things. What are they? Ishvara, God. What is God? It tells us what is God. That's the first topic of Bhagavad Gita. The second topic is Jiva, souls. Who am I? What are we? That's the second topic. Third topic is Prakriti, the material world. What is it? The fourth topic is Kala. Kala means the time factor. Time destroys everything, doesn't it? So time is something, I personally find the time very mysterious. You know, in fact, I was in before I was, as I say, I was interested in physics because it was just that, the inquiry was there. Before I was a devotee, I was inquiring about a lot of things. What is time and this and that, and then I would, watch the, 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 the quantum physics videos and all that where they talk about time travel. You can, and time wrap, it's called relativity. You can go back in time, and there are wormholes. I mean, you can look it up. These are all quantum physics. And it can go back and forth in time, and time is not linear as we are told to believe. It's not going, it's cyclic. That's what we believe. So time is very mysterious actually. We can't see time, we can't touch time, we can't taste it, we can't hear it, but we see the effect of time. Time is the Kala, is the other topic of Bhagavad Gita. Interestingly, in Sanskrit, there is the same word for time and death. Kal. Kal is death. And time also is called Kal. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's the same word. And the fifth topic is karma. Karma is that which is even Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the karma is most complicated to understand. It's really, believe me, it's very complicated. It's not simple like you do a good thing and yes, of course, you do good thing, you get good. But one question which often gets asked, I've seen in ISKCON videos, why do bad things happen to good people? That's a common question. And you see that every time somebody is so good, but then he suffers, and the bad people are enjoying. What is that? That's the karma, because we haven't seen the whole movie. Somebody's whole movie we haven't seen. There's a past where our karma gets accumulated and we get the reaction of that now. And whatever good we do now, in the future time we'll get that. So it's a very complex topic, karma. So that's about karma. So we will not be doing all of, and this is just the introduction. So, but Prabhupada has mentioned this, so we have to go through this. Now, coming to Ishvara, this is again, each topic takes a great deal of time to explain it. Ishvara, God. Now, God means different things to different people, and everybody is right. Nobody's really wrong. God means different things to different people. In Christianity, they say God is love. That's true. You're not wrong. And in Islam, they say God is energy, which is they're against personifying God. So they're also right. So basically, to give an example, in the next slide, I think I'll go to the next slide. That'll make it understand. We're taking an example of sun. Sun, everybody has seen, right? Now in winters, we like to sit in the sun. We get the sun rays. The sun rays, is it different from sun, or is it the same as sun? It's a tricky question. The sun rays coming from the sun, is it the same as the sun, or is it different? It's both same and different. The sun rays is same and different. When you sit dhoop, we all get the sun rays. We like it in winter. The sun rays is coming from the sun. It's a part of sun. But it's not the whole of sun. It's just the rays. Number 2, the sun planet, the globe, the sun planet that we can see, that we can't really see. It's so bright, the sun globe. That is a fact, right? Science tells us the sun globe is there. Sun globe is different. The sun rays are different. They're also same, but they're different also. Number 3, you remember the sun god Vivaswan, who heard the Bhagavad Gita the first time. So there is, according to our scriptures, there is a ruler of the sun planet. Believe it or not, in Bhagavatam, they talk about living beings in the sun planet. Exactly. That was my question to how is it possible? See, that's what our knowledge is very limited. The scientific knowledge is very limited. Sun is so hot, we can't imagine any living being there. But there, according to our scriptures, there are living beings in the sun planet, and there is a presiding deity who is called Vivaswan. And that deity is, again, as I said, it's a position like our ministers for this millions of years. The deity's name is Vivaswan. So there is now this picture you see, he is on a chariot with 7 horses. And they all have names. The charioteer has a name, that's sun god. Sun god is different from the globe sun, and the globe sun is different from the sun rays, right? That concept is clear, right? Now we go back to the previous slide. This is the analogy of Bhagavan. Bhagavan has 3 different forms. The most basic form is the sun rays. Everybody is familiar with the sun rays. Similarly, if you're not an atheist, if you're a theist, meaning if you believe in God, then all the people who believe in God believe, yes, there is some energy. They acknowledge, accept the energy. That is the Brahman. The Brahman is the energy of Lord Krishna. It's the energy. So people who worship the Brahman, or if you meditate and you want to grow into the Brahman, you're actually going to Krishna. Nothing wrong with that. That's also bona fide. But that's just the basic level. And the second level, like the sun globe, is the Paramatma. So Krishna's the basic um, the basic feature that most of people get is the Brahman. The second is a Paramatma, which I showed the picture. Inside every heart, inside every soul, there's a Paramatma. That's Krishna's other aspect. To reach there, you have to do a little bit more hard work. And usually it's a yogis whose aim is to achieve that Paramatma. The yoga, you do meditation, and you want to be with the Paramatma. They're also right. They are connecting with Krishna. And the Brahman is the Gyanis. They accept the Brahman part. Yogis accept the Paramatma part. But the ultimate, the real deal is Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Krishna as a 16-year-old beautiful form with a flute, Shyam Sundar. That is the personal form of Krishna, and that is very rare. That's very, very, very rare, and only those who have the mercy, the blessing of Krishna can connect with that form. And that's our aim is. We want to connect with the personal form of Krishna. We are not satisfied with just the Brahman energy. Yes, we acknowledge, yes, that's Krishna's energy. We are not satisfied with the Paramatma in our heart. Yes, that's Krishna, we accept it. But we want to connect with that Krishna who is the most charming flute player. So that's the Lord's, the 3 aspects of Lord. And now coming to Prakriti. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. It means this material nature is working under my direction. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this material nature is working in my direction. That's what I showed that slide where he's above, he's beyond the material nature. So nothing of the material things affect him. One example is when Krishna came down to our planet Earth and he did a lot of pastimes. He lifted Govardhan Hill. How is that possible? It defies gravity. It defies scientific, everything that we know. He lifted the Govardhan Hill like in his little finger. And he did a lot of superhuman acts, which is mind-boggling. Why? because the material rules don't affect him. It's like somebody gave an example of, you are in a car, you're driving, or you're in a scooter driving in the traffic, and there's a red light, and you have to stop your car or your vehicle. But what about the aeroplane that's on the sky? Does the pilot stop for a red light? No, he doesn't. It doesn't affect him. He's beyond that. Similarly, Krishna comes and he does what he wants to do, and none of the laws of physics affect him. He's beyond that. So he says, Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. And that brings us to the final slide of today. And so that's it. I think we covered about, out of 30 pages, I think 10, 12 pages are covered. And then we go to the other in the next session. So basically, as I said, the introduction is building the foundation of the greatness of Lord Krishna, and that will help us understand Bhagavad Gita better. Any questions?
Mataji, as you said that yogis connect to the Paramatma by doing meditation. So we also do meditation by chanting the name of the God. So do we get connected to the Paramatma or do we get connected to Krishna?
Directly to Krishna, because Krishna's name, as in the personality of Krishna and his name are not different, they are same. Yogis, I don't think they chant anything, they just meditate on that, the soundless sound or om or something. But yes, we connect with direct, the third aspect, the highest aspect when we chant the name. Yeah, thanks. Any other question from what we saw so far? Is all clear? The 5 topics and our position. What is our position? Remember, we are the eternal dash servants of Lord Krishna. Yes. So that's it. I think we can. Hare Krishna. Let's do the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Gurudev. Thank you.